just get going. So welcome to Simply Certification. This session is talking about PAS 2038, as you know. What we wanted to do is just run through an overview what it is and what it actually means to the industry. I'll just do a little brief introduction. So I'm Alex Gates. I am Simply Certification's Marketing and Strategy Director. And I have with me Simply Certification's Managing Director, Austin Gibbons. So Austin will take over. He knows all the technical aspects of PAS 2038. So any questions, if you can pop them up in the chat, I'll try and answer them as we go through. I'll ask Austin to answer them. Anything that we can't answer there and then on the session, I will actually take I'll do an email to everybody with the questions and the answers post the session. At the end of the session, there's a link which I'll also share on the chat for you, which actually includes a free checklist for PAS 2038 to get everybody going, and an invitation to a LinkedIn group that's been set up as well. So just keep that conversation going. Okay, so I'll just give you a little bit brief introduction about Simply Certification. Obviously, we're a certification body. So we carry out a range of assessments across a range of standards. You can see probably from our backgrounds, the common one that most people go for is the ISO 9001. And we also offer certification around a range of standards for the built environment. So basically, these are the standards that we offer currently. So you can see there's the PAS 2030, which is the retrofit installation of energy efficiency measures, PAS 2035 and PAS 2038, which is basically what we're going to be talking about today. You can see there's a range of other standards there that a lot of our clients come to us for as also. So our main sector is the construction and built environment sector. Basically, that's due to the competency of the team, our backgrounds, and very much it's a focus on, obviously it's a growing sector in terms of ensuring there's that kind of climate change element across the built environment sector. So what we want to do is we want to break the mold of how certification bodies actually are perceived. We don't want to be the tail that wags the dog. You know, we want our customers to have the experience of very much value-led audit. It's all about making your business better and more sustainable, all about business improvement, all of that sort of thing. So our assessors that work with us are in fact very kind of friendly. They work with our clients, very collaborative, etc. So we've got those 5 core values. As I say, we're collaborative. We help our customers have an assessment programme that's not dotted around all the way throughout the year if that's not what they want. We try and streamline that audit process to get the most from it. We consider ourselves very supportive with our customers. So again, it's not about beating everybody with a big stick and trying to find issues as part of any audit or assessment. We consider ourselves very responsive, so we're always at the end of the phone. We don't have the the press 1 for this, press 2 for that. There's always a voice at the end of the phone. Our team are all competent, so we hope that we can answer questions very, very quickly. We're also very innovative in terms of the platforms that we use as part of our assessment process, just to make that more streamlined and a lot more simplistic for our customers to handle. And I've said before, it's about value-led, so this isn't about a check in the box almost to actually demonstrate compliance, but also to ensure that our relationship with you ensures that your business is, you know, growing in terms of business improvement, etc. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Austin. He's going to run through the PAS 2038 standard.
Share my screen then so you can manage the chat, Alex. Okay, can you see that okay? No problem. So I'll start by saying what is PAS 2038. So PAS 2038 was released as a standard in the summer of this year. And as Alex alluded to, PAS 2038 revolves around the retrofitting of non-domestic buildings. So in essence, PAS 2038 is one of three standards. So PAS 2038 is around the installation of energy efficiency measures. This is the UCAS standard that organisations can get. PAS 2035 underpins currently PAS 2030, and this is around the assessment and the design of energy efficiency measures in a domestic property. And at the moment, 2035 independently can just get certification of conformity if it's not with PAS 2030. PAS 2038 is around the assessment and design of energy efficiency measures in commercial properties. And at the moment, it cannot be underpinned aligned for PAS 2030 as a UCAS certification. They'll run hand in hand, but at the moment, BEIS haven't made it and UCAS haven't made it a UCAS standard, but that is the intention in the coming months and years. So the aims of retrofit standard as a whole is to improve energy efficiency, it's to avoid unattended consequences, it's to improve overall quality of installation work, it's to reduce environmental impact, improve the functionality of buildings and protect listed and heritage architecture. So why PAS 2030? So since it came out in the middle of this year, there's been a lot of clients that have come to us, a blend from public sector clients to principal contractors. Some are either driven by improving their supply chain procurement, some are driven by wanting to meet those procurement requirements. So there's been a number of tenders that have come out and frameworks lately, so for instance Fusion 20C1 and others that are focused around decarbonisation. They have stipulated PAS 2038 as a requirement within that, and that's one of the main drivers that have been brought with this. But outside of that, it's to enhance confidence in retrofit processes. It's a commitment to working towards net carbon zero. So BEIS released an element not too long ago that their aim is to get businesses 20% more efficient by 2030 and 60% more efficient by 2050. The good thing about PAS 2038 as well is you may have majority of the underpinning processes if you already have a quality management system. So the integration between 9001 and 2038 will be very strong. It also details a clear process for inception, assessment, design, installation and evaluation is defined. And you may also be aware that non-domestic private rented sector has to achieve a Band B by 2030, and PAS 2038 is one method that enables organisations to evaluate potential improvement measures to achieve that Band B status. So, kindly taken from the University of College London, what I've done here is just presented kind of an overview of what non-domestic building stock looks like in England and Wales. So as you can see, there's a lot of factories, commercial offices, shops, and a blended approach with kind of public sector from schools and hospitals and things like that. So to put that into a little bit more context is, as of March 2020, this is an overview of the number of types of non-domestic buildings within England and Wales by use. And then what I also have done is just underpin some of that to some context and statistics that I thought was quite interesting. So larger buildings are responsible for more electricity and gas consumption than smaller buildings. So 61% of electricity and 72% of gas consumption are from buildings with over 1,000 square metres. Another interesting one, both electricity and gas consumption from non-domestic buildings have remained relatively constant between 2012 and 2019. I know BEIS are quite adamant that gas consumption should come down year on year now with the introduction of new renewable technologies. For both electricity and gas, factories are the highest consumer, but for electricity we have also got offices and shops and warehouses. But interestingly as well, for gas we've also got a lot of education and hospitality as well. So the supply chain, why would you need to be compliant to PAS 2038? So those in the construction maintenance who assess the design and upgrading of schemes for existing building stock greater than 500 square metres, PAS 2038 demonstrates quite clearly suggested methods to evaluate and carry out surveys on buildings to identify those improvements options. So it is a great standard for organisations or independent consultants to work with commercial organisations to identify suggested improvements, and these are the kind of typical organisations where, or typical types of buildings where these improvements options could be evaluated in. So the supply chain, why would you need to be compliant to PAS 2030 and 38? Those in the construction maintenance sector who install measures to existing commercial building stock greater than 500 metres squared using PAS 2038 designs. So in essence, anyone that's doing any insulation or building fabric, building services, for instance, HVAC and electrical, which will have, or which could have an impact on energy efficiency, then 2030 and 2038 would be a suggested route to go down to demonstrate the robustness in identifying energy improvement methods. So what we've done here is we've just done a top level overview of what each element of the standard is trying to achieve. So I'm just going to go through this at top level and then just give you a bit of an indication what each element of the standard is trying to look for. So that point one is the appointment of a project team with suitable competency. So I'll talk about shortly about the different roles there. Assessment of the building, including its context, condition, occupancy, and performance. So once that's achieved, evaluation of improvement options to identify appropriate work, agreement of intended outcomes, including performance targets, preparation of an improvement plan, design and specification of the work, obtaining statutory approvals, physically carrying out the retrofit work, testing, commissioning and handover of the retrofitted building, fine-tuning of performance to meet the intended targets, and evaluation of the projects to confirm outcomes and any unintended consequences. So if we look at the appointment of the project team with suitable competency, so if you're familiar with 2030 and 2035, it stipulates a retrofit coordinator. In the instance of 38, it stipulates a lead professional. So this role acts as a project manager like the retrofit coordinator in PAS 2035, and it could be an architect, engineer, surveyor or project manager. It very much depends on the nature of retrofit project. If it's very much around building services, it could be a building services engineer. If it's very much about insulation, it could be a RICS surveyor, it could be a project manager. All depends on the nature and complexity of the retrofit work. The lead assessor leads the assessment of the building, which includes its use, condition and energy performance. So a suggested person could be an NDA, non-domestic energy assessor, to support that assessment process. And then you've got the retrofit team. This could be a combination of assessors, designers, specialised consultants and installers. So then once you've identified those teams and roles, it's about the assessment of the building, including its context, condition, occupancy and performance. So the context consists of the building's architectural, cultural and historical context and its physical settings, including aspect and exposure, access, planning, constraints, etc. Condition. So key to this for the retrofit works is to understand the existing conditions. The standard does want you to rectify any defects prior to carrying out the retrofit work if it would affect the intended outcome of the energy efficiency measures. So that's looking at the structural condition, its construction, services and controls, the presence of defects and the needs for repairs and maintenance. So occupancy, the number of occupants and their pattern of use of the building, including heating, cooling, lighting and ventilation. Again, that's so you can identify the best fit improvement option and be really clear on the intended outcome so you can then demonstrate your future savings from understanding the occupancy. Energy performance, how much the energy the building uses, broken down by uses and fuel types related to benchmarks. So once we've got that information, the next part is the evaluation options. So post the assessment, an improvement option evaluation should be carried out to identify a package of energy efficiency improvement options. So this will include identification of all technically applicable and appropriate energy improvement measures, a payback calculation, energy cost effectiveness and alignment to intended retrofit. So key here, the standard isn't trying to say that you are going to install every measure technically possible, because it's about the feasibility of it, both from a payback calculation or energy cost effectiveness to make sure that the building can withstand the retrofit work from a value point of view. Agreement of intended outcomes, including performance targets. So here we want to try and identify the retrofit work. What will this achieve in terms of carbon saving and occupancy and various other intended outcomes? So it can be measured post installation to see if the standard and the work has achieved that. So preparation of an improvement plan. So key to this is it should be agreed with the client. Core focus on achieving net zero emissions by 2050. And some of the elements that needs to be included are benchmark comparisons to unimproved building to industry benchmarks. Identify any repair or maintenance work prior to the retrofit. Confirm the agreed energy performance target and identify ways to eliminate the use of fossil fuels. So the design and specification of work. So it's similar to 2035. Improvement measures of retrofit projects shall be subject to a retrofit design by a qualified person. The qualified person would be dependent on the type and nature of the retrofit work that's being carried out. Design should be aligned across materials, products, process and services and should be compatible with the building and each other. There should be specific design considerations for moisture and overheating management needs to be included. The retrofit design shall specify the sequence of installation of the energy efficiency measures, and up to 1,000 square metres simple payback needs to be recalculated, but if it's over 1,000 square metres energy cost effective needs recalculated. So statutory approvals, relatively straightforward. So either the project team shall advise the client about statutory approvals, or the client may delegate to the project team about they obtaining statutory approvals depending on how the project has been developed. So carrying out the retrofit work. So a contractor could be engaged by the client to retrofit the whole building, employing suitable professional subcontractors where required. So this could be the instance of a principal contractor, or specialist installers engaged by the client to install individual measures or packaged related. So for instance, insulation or ventilation. So the key element about this element here is it's got to align to an existing installation standard. So this is where the overlap to PAS 2030 comes in. So in essence, that defines how to fulfill and have a system that enables you to do the installation of retrofit work. If it's over 1,000 metres, the contractor shall prepare an inspection and test plan, and defective work should be recorded and corrected. So when we look at testing, commissioning and handover of the retrofitted building, the testing and commissioning shall be specified in the retrofit design. So this could include air tightness before, during and after the installation. Certificates should be provided to clients via the retrofit lead professional. For buildings over 1,000 square metres, the building assessment, retrofit design, testing and commissioning shall be used in a building logbook, and handover of the retrofit work shall be overseen by the lead professional and shall be held electronically for 6 years or for the duration of the warranty length. So fine-tuning of performance to meet intended targets. For buildings over 1,000 square metres again, during the first year and handover and occupation of the building, the project team should carry out fine-tuning of the building system and controls to assist with the achievement of the energy performance targets. So post handover, during that phase, if we're not achieving the intended outcomes that we originally designed for, and we believe that it can be achieved through fine-tuning, this is where we should be recording that to make sure we do achieve it or enhance what we originally designed. All changes shall be recorded within the logbook. So the evaluation of the project to confirm the outcomes of unintended consequences. So this is a key part for kind of engaging and creating that lessons learned process to improve every retrofit project that organisations do. Every retrofit project shall be evaluated to determine how well the installed measures are working and if they have met the intended outcomes. So there's 2 levels of evaluation, depending again on the size and complexity of the work. There's a basic, so that could be a questionnaire distributed to the clients and occupants for them to assess and change of outcomes are noted. Or there's a further evaluations where it's lessons learned, identification of further work. So what we've done here is I want to just talk about the process. So we've developed a certificate of conformity at Simply Certification. So a lot of organisations have been engaging with us, and we've been carrying out assessments on their retrofit processes to make sure they align to 2038 and issuing a certificate to give them to confidence to their clients or to their supply chain or whatever it is. So the first step is an application. We would review the organisation, review the kind of complexity, type and volume of retrofit works, so we can determine the number of assessment days. What we then progress to is a head office assessment. We would come and look through the processes, meet with the retrofit team, have an understanding of their ability and check their understanding of the retrofit processes. We would then want to undertake a retrofit project review. So this could be one or this could be multiple depending on the depth and the breadth of the scope. So if you're doing building services as well as insulation and building fabric, we may want to see a number of retrofit projects to then issue the certificate of conformity. Post that then, it would be a case of addressing any non-conformities if any have been raised, and then we would issue a certificate of conformity. So this would last for a period of a year, and then again we would then be expected to carry out retrofit project reviews each year, but hopefully post the first year and midway through during to the second year, it should then hopefully become a UCAS standard or quite soon after that. So yeah, you will have already been used to the type and nature of assessments that we're doing for it to then become a UCAS standard. So these are some references, and as Alex alluded to in the chat, she's going to put the checklist and everything there. So thank you for listening to that, everyone. So I appreciate it. Have we got any questions, Alex?
Yes, hi. I'm just responding. There's been quite a few people asking for copies of the presentation. I've got everybody's email addresses off when you've registered, so I'll make sure that a copy's emailed out directly to all of you. That's not a problem. The session's also been recorded, so we'll be posting that online, so you can sit and go back through it at your own leisure, because the slides obviously with the narrative obviously helps you also. I've just posted a link within the chat facility there, and basically what that will mean is that you can click onto there, you can access the checklist for PAS 2038, so that kind of gives you a little bit overview of what would tend to be required. And then there's also a link there to join a LinkedIn group, because what we wanted, this is all very new, the standard was only launched in August. So there's obviously a lot of questions and probably a lot of conversation that needs to continue on with this. So I'm just getting a few questions through there now, Austin. Stephen Farrell's asking, what are the costs of certification?
So the costs, Stephen, are made up of the number of assessment days. So if an organisation's doing building services as a sole retrofit, and that's all they do, typically the assessment days would probably be 2 days in duration, so that would probably be roughly indicatively about £1,500. If an organisation's doing kind of insulation, building services, building fabric and a host of different measures, that would then increase the number of days, and we have kind of a complexity risk-based matrix to then determine the number of days. But as a starting basis, that's to just give you an indication there, Stephen. And
Camille's asking, is there going to be a certification scheme to become actually a lead assessor?
A lead assessor, so in essence, what we do for our assessors is we take their underpinning knowledge in the built environment. Some of our lead assessors are ISO 9001 lead assessors, or we would just demonstrate that, in essence, they have the understanding of the built environment, so whether it's building services, building fabric, and then they just need to get trained on how to carry out audits, be impartial, conduct open and closing meetings. So in essence, that may be something we could develop, but we've got probably a lot of materials if you want to have a session with us, and we could probably talk you through that process.
Adrian, he's asking, is there a requirement, I'm guessing this is alluding to what's required for PAS 2030, is there a requirement to upload the completed logbook file into the public domain, i.e. Trustmark Data Warehouse?
So there isn't yet, and you would be surprised. So actually the non-domestic marketplace for carrying out retrofit work sometimes isn't as well established in terms of lodgements. So Trustmark wouldn't be the gatekeeper for this, because that's typically geared up for domestic marketplace. In terms of if you were carrying out retrofit work that didn't have any structural requirement, in essence, the logbook would be there, but it wouldn't be there for the public domain. That probably should be a future state position to enable everyone to understand about how we're going to hit these decarbonisation. But at the moment, the only way that we could understand that is through the revised EPC to then hit that band B, which is then reported on. But the actual context of that isn't as well documented.
James is asking, would a NDAA likely have the right skills to be a lead professional?
So the NDEA is the non-domestic energy assessor. So that's one of the courses that would be quite key and important to carry out the initial assessment of the building, the energy baseline performance, and supporting the evaluation. However, that in itself may not be the sole kind of key competency. So the key element is, if you're an NDA, it's kind of to have that underpinning knowledge in the type of retrofit work you're doing. So if you're kind of a structural individual and you're doing an NDA, you might not be able to get involved in the building services. It's kind of making sure you align your skills and qualifications to your experience there. But that will be one of the key courses that would probably be advised to start off if you are doing assessments, for sure.
Okay. I've had a couple of questions via email. Are there enough trained professionals to support the delivery of PAS 2038?
So this is a hard one. So in effect, there probably aren't enough trained professionals to do that. So the kind of retrofit design piece won't really add any more layers of complexity, but it's the deep level of detail that we really need to be key on, is evaluating the future state based on the installation of the energy efficiency measures. And a lot of companies at the moment might not have those resources in-house. So it's really to develop processes that may enable existing staff to feel comfortable in that, and then using things like the NDA course to complement them and do that. So that's going to be a big skills gap that needs to be closed out over the next kind of 2 to 3 years. I mean, you're probably aware of the Greenhouse Grant and a lot of the training that was delivered as part of that, but that was solely focused on the domestic marketplace. So the retrofit coordinator and some of the courses there give you a good underpinning knowledge, but it is around domestic, whereas for the commercial elements, the evaluation is going to be a lot more detailed, and the design requirements is going to be a bit more complex, again, depending on the complexity of that.
Okay, and Stephen,
yes, I saw this one. Yes, so yeah. In respect to the decarbonisation funding, there was discussions to align it to 2038, but the government were quite keen on getting this funding spent. So we've had discussions with a couple of framework providers. In essence, I don't know if you've seen Fusion 21. Fusion 21 released their decarbonisation tender quite recently, and theirs was aligned to 2038. So hence why we got a lot of organisations coming to us saying it's required as a stipulation. How can we get a certificate to say we've conformed to that? And that was one of the inception pieces to develop this, really. But future requirements, I do genuinely believe a lot of tenders are going to be aligned to 2038, because I think it would genuinely add true value by doing that.
Yeah. And I've got another question, PAS 2038, which I think you mentioned before. Will this become a UCAS accredited certification?
So, I mean, we've been engaging with UCAS ourselves about this. So, and Bays were quite clear that they didn't want it to become a UCAS standard straight on the back foot, because they felt the curve to get commercial organisations ready for PAS 2038 could and will be a phased approach. And by stipulating a UCAS requirement now, that may then allow some of the bigger organisations to get certified where the other ones need to upskill or bring in resources. So I think my gut feeling over the kind of next 18 months, I do genuinely believe it will be a UCAS standard. 2038 refers to 2030, which is the UCAS element. UCAS 2030 is only underpinned by 35 at the moment. So I think there is going to be a soon-to-be synergy between them to then form a UCAS scheme.
Okay. I think we've managed to get through all the questions, so thank you very much. I mean, has anybody, if anyone's got any more, you can pop one in now just before we close the session. But thank you for being interactive, and I really hope it's been a useful session. I'm going to post the link to the page again, just to kind of keep that conversation going. Thank you, Camille, for saying it's an informative session. I'm glad you thought so. I hope you have a good day as well. That goes for everybody. But yeah, just get in touch. I've posted my email address on there. There's the link to our page if you want to kind of join our LinkedIn group, download a checklist. And obviously I'll email the slides out to you and let you know when the recording is live for you to view at your own leisure or share that around.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, very much. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.